heaven? Is it full of religious people, or is it full of faithful? Well, it's full of faithful people. Faith is what saves us through the Most High's grace, not religion. There's hundreds of religions in the world, but there's only one type of faithful. God reads your heart. So basically what I'm trying to say, if I was flying over the Caribbean, if I was a Mormon, for instance, and I was flying over one of these remote island chains in the Caribbean, and my plane crashed, and I lived on that island on my own for 50 years, but I still kept my faith, would I get into heaven, or would they not let me into heaven because I didn't have a temple? Or if there was another Exodus, would you leave your temple behind? Or would you stay with your temple and sink with the ship? Because when the Exodus happens, there was lots of temples in Egypt, probably, and did they take the temples with them? No. So temples are not necessarily part of faith. Temples are only the exterior invention of the imagination of man's heart, because every person everyone you speak to that builds a temple will tell you that their temple is the one. Well, at the end of the day, when Jesus returns, he has no use for any of your temples. He does away with all religion, and it looks nice, and it's great for keeping the faithful in check and keeping the rulers of certain religions in power. I'm not saying all religious leaders are like that. I'm just using this as an example. But for instance, if you check the first temples, as temples proliferated, man's lifespan got shorter. And to this day, the abominable church, the Roman Catholic Church, controls all the religions of the world. All of them, bar none. They're in the background. Any new faith or any new message that will ever be, every now and again they change the furniture so much and the language that's not recognisable. So if I was to live if I was to come back 2,000 years later, or even 500 years later, I wouldn't recognise the language, and I wouldn't recognise the culture or the dress of the people. It would be so different. That's all part of Satan and the abominable church to dilute the true message. See, the true message doesn't change. God stays the same, the Most High stays the same, Jesus the Father stays the same. But the world changes, and the world is deliberately designed to change so that the message of the prophets is diluted over a couple of generations, and the Most High has to send a new teacher every so often. And he sends a new teacher and a new teacher. That's why we've had loads of different prophets over the millennia. The message they portray is always the same message, it's always the same teachings, it's always the same message, but it has to be given over and over and over and over again, because every time a prophet gives the message and the faithful start off, straight away Satan and the abominable church go to work on that faith, and they make a religion out of it, and eventually that religion becomes corrupt. That's just the way it goes. Everyone would like to sit down and say that their religion is the one true religion, and that it's a Roman legion, it's the real legions. So basically, every now and again, everything is corrupted. If I was to get the first, so what they'd call Christians, and show them Christianity today, or to show them what people say is Christianity, Catholicism. It's not Christianity. They wouldn't recognise it in any way, shape or form. They'd say that's idolatry. That's not part of faith. They worship the Virgin Mary. No, they don't worship the Virgin Mary. And the repetitive prayers and the big cathedrals and turning the churches into a bank. Obviously the Vatican Bank is the largest bank in the world now. So basically the Pope and the Jesuit generals are just big bankers. And they finance wars, they finance all sorts of stuff. They launder money, banks launder money, and this is religion. So basically, your temple is not the temple or your church is not the most important thing in your faith. It's you. and your ability to converse and have a personal relationship with the Most High. If you can't do that, if you have to go to a middleman, you're not getting into heaven. You're not getting your new body in Christ, because you were called and you didn't listen. So basically the Most High says in one of the verses, he says, I will give you a heart of flesh for a heart of stone. What does that mean? Well, you could say that people that have a religion centered around a stone church or a temple or a synagogue or a mosque or whatever, a Buddha thing or whatever it is, an idol, that's a heart of stone, because at the center of the teachings is centered around a stone building, an idol, an imagination, vanity, man's vanity, the creation of a man's vanity. But the Lord doesn't speak to the rocks, he speaks to the heart. He speaks to your heart. For instance, every Muslim has to go to something called the Kaaba or something like that. They have to march around that in circles. What's inside that is a rock. Inside that is a stone. That's the mechanism religion works on. It's always the same. There's always a stone around it. There's always a rock. Somewhere you'll find a stone. It might be a carving of an idol. It might be a church made of stone. It might be a Virgin Mary that's allegedly weeping from the eyes, or it could be construed that she's soaking in hyaluronic acid for a parasitic entity that's called the Queen of Heaven, who's morphed and metamorphosed and changed names and appearances, but all the same mode of operandis. An idol made of stone and hyaluronic acid, and the Queen of Heaven, and so on and so forth. So basically, when most faiths start out, they get a message from a man who usually has a book and a stick and a bit of teaching, something like that. Nothing fancy. Walks around, in a lot of trouble with everybody. They're picking on him because he's giving them the truth, and they don't want to hear the truth. They can't handle the truth. So usually they try and kill off the prophets. So basically the message comes from a man who usually doesn't have much in the way of the world, like houses and flats and churches and whatever else. It's just a man giving a message. That's the way the Most High likes it. He doesn't like all of this fancy stuff. He doesn't like all these big flashy cathedrals or churches, because that puts a curse on you. You're cursed. With a curse, it says in the Bible. You will die as a baby at 100 years. So religions, synagogues, mosques, temples, idols, they're part of religion, and Jesus does away with all religions. So I wouldn't put too much of an emphasis on religion and the teachings of a religion, because at the end of the day, all the religions we have now, they stem from one place, and that's basically around the Vatican, around the Middle East, around there, the Church of Babylon. They removed before they could create new religions, they had to remove a lot of stuff from the Bible. So if we had a 150-piece jigsaw puzzle and I put it in a frame and stuck it up on the wall, and then I took away half of those pieces and says, look at me picture. That's what they done with the Bible, the same thing. They took away half of the pieces, so you got half the picture, and then they painted, and then they tell you a porky pie. So that's the danger of religion. In order for us to get the full picture, we have to get our hands on the books that haven't been destroyed, and we have to study them. A wise man will increase learning. How can you increase learning if half the books have been removed? How can you increase learning if your church or your religion says you can't listen, or you can't learn this, you can't read this, you can't read that? How can you increase learning? How can you become wise?